High-ranking Democrat officials continue to oppose President Trump at every turn as he simply tries to stop crime and clean up the streets of America's once great big cities. His next target is Chicago, Illinois. We're going to talk about all that, but before we do, my name is Cresses, and this is Trending Politics. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell to stay up to date with all political news. So last I spoke on this channel about President Trump's massively successful federal takeover of Washington, D.C., and the resulting dramatic reductions in crime rates of all kinds, carjackings, robberies, aggravated assaults, and murders. All crime is down in Washington, D.C. We actually had a very surprising admission from the far-left Democrat Mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser, who really praised and commended President Trump and the federal police force for their success in bringing crime rates down. This was a almost strange break from Democrat Party dogma, which dictates that you cannot praise President Trump for anything ever, no matter how great it is. But I think as Democrats continually place themselves on the wrong side of what President Trump calls a 97-3 issue, as in 97% of Americans oppose crime. They don't want to live in a crime-ridden society, and 3%, for whatever reason, love crime. As Democrats continue to funnel themselves into that weird 3%, they become increasingly unpopular, and I think President Trump showed just how successful he could be in stopping crime and really proved that living in a crime-ridden city under Democrat leadership is a choice. It's a choice inflicted upon you by that leadership that allows criminals to run rampant, that releases criminals back on the streets, 30, 40, 50-time repeat offenders. They just release them back on the street. And President Trump proved, no, you don't have to live like this. We can fix this. You don't have to be inflicted to the tyranny of criminals. We can fix it. Anyways, yesterday, during a press conference of sorts, President Trump spoke a little bit more about his plans to bring this federal force to the city of Chicago, which is often referred to as the city of Chirac because it has crime and murder rates worse than many third world war-torn countries. Very strange situation that has been allowed to happen by their mayor, Brandon Johnson, who last I checked has a single-digit approval rating. Is that right? I don't know. Anyways, let's watch this video. We'll check it out.
You know, they're soldiers. I want to see it end. Yep.
Mr. President, have you decided you're definitely going to send National Guard troops to Chicago?
I didn't say when, but the answer is, look, Chicago's very interesting because I watched Pritzker get up and say we don't need help, we're safe. But 2 weeks ago, they had 6 people murdered, and they had 24 people hit by bullets. Last week, as you know, it was 7 people, 24 people hit, and 7 people died. And then over the last 2 days, that was the crown jewel. They had, I guess, 9 or 10 killed, and 50 hit with bullets. And you have this governor get up, who's a terrible governor. Probably he and Gavin Newsom would be probably the 2 worst and most naive. They're naive. Either they're naive or they're very untruthful. And he'll say, we don't want any protection. We don't need. So in the last 3 weeks, he's lost almost 20 people killed. There's no place in the world, including you can go to Afghanistan, you can go to places that you would think of. They don't even come close to this. Chicago is a hellhole right now. Baltimore is a hellhole right now. Parts of Los Angeles are terrible. If we didn't put out the fires, and I mean the other fires, the bullet fires, they didn't do a good job with, they should have had the water coming down, like I said. You know, we had to release the water. We had to go in and release the water to L.A. It's so badly run. But if I didn't send the National Guard into Los Angeles, I would be making an announcement today. I'd be talking about Huntsville, and I'd simultaneously be saying, by the way, the Olympics is not coming to Los Angeles. If we didn't do that, and even the sheriff, the top law enforcement person in Los Angeles said, we could not have handled it without them. So that's what he said.
Did you make your mind up on Chicago, though?
Well, we're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in. When you lose, look, I have an obligation. This isn't a political thing. I have an obligation. When we lose, when 20 people are killed over the last 2.5 weeks, and 75 are shot with bullets. So let me tell you a little story about a place called D.C., District of Columbia, right here where we are. It's now a safe zone. We have no crime. We have It's in such great shape. You can go and actually walk with your children, your wife, your husband. You can walk right down the middle of the street. You're not going to be shot, Peter. You're safe. Everyone likes you anyway. They probably wouldn't do it. But it's so dangerous. And there are people in this audience that you've suffered greatly. There are people in this audience that have been mugged and hurt badly, and they don't want to talk about it. Maybe you were very brave in talking about it. You made quite an impression on a lot of people. I appreciate it. But there were other people in this room that have been hurt very badly just walking down the street in D.C. Washington, D.C. is a safe zone right now. It's a safe city. The restaurants are open. They're booming. You can't get a restaurant. New restaurants are announcing that they're going to be open. This took place in 12 days. Now it's 15 days, but 3 days ago it became what's known as a safe zone. It's a safe city. And this city was really bad, really, really bad. We took 1,600 people out, hardcore criminals that will not be coming back anytime soon. And we're very proud of it. You know, to have our nation's capital lose every week, you know, it was like years, many years, where every single week somebody was killed for many, many, many consecutive weeks. This went on for years. And then we had, last week it was announced that nobody was killed last week. And I made that announcement in front of a very distinguished leader of a country. And I'm saying proudly, ladies and gentlemen, nobody was killed in Washington, D.C. this week. He looked at me like, what's that all about? I say, yeah, we have a little bit of a crime problem. And we don't have a crime problem in Washington anymore. And the mayor has been very helpful, and the police commission has been very helpful, and it's been a great team. And I would love to have Governor Pritzker call me. I'd gain respect for him and say, we do have a problem, and we'd love you to send in the troops, because you know what? The people, they have to be protected. I saw today on one of your networks, not a friendly network, except really the opposite, I would say, very unfriendly network. And they interviewed about 12 people on this morning. Most of them were African American, they were black. And they were saying, please, please, please let the president send in. These were people from Chicago. Please, we need help. We need help. We can't walk outside. We're petrified. If the governor of Illinois would call me up, I would love to do it. Now, we're going to do it anyway. We have the right to do it because I have an obligation to protect this country. And that includes Baltimore. I saw where Governor Moore was asking me to take a walk down the street of Baltimore. Well, Baltimore is a very unsafe place. It's rated number 4 in the city, one of the most unsafe places anywhere in the world. But, you know, we took care. This was a beautiful thing that happened in Washington because we showed that it could be done. And this wasn't just sending big, strong guys, and they are big and they are strong. You know, we had a great decision from the Supreme Court that had to do with sort of talent. It had to do with you are put down based on merit. You can hire based on merit. So merit for a soldier or for a policeman is strong, physically fit, having a certain ability, not a person that is woke and got the job through woke, but wasn't strong enough to lift a gun out of the holster, et cetera, et cetera. No, I looked at the police. As you know, last week I went over, we had a meeting there had to be 300 people, and they were all very impressive looking. And when the bad guys see them, they're not going to do a thing. And so I'm very proud of Washington. It serves as a template, and we're going to do it elsewhere. But Chicago is certainly going to be high. I would love to have him call. I would love the governor of Illinois. I'd be honored to take his call. All he has to do is say, sir, we need help. It's out of control. And everyone knows it is. He's not kidding anyone. I would love to have, I would say, Governor Moore call, because I watched him over the weekend trying to explain that Baltimore, what they need is housing. No, they don't need housing. They need to get rid of the criminals. These are hardcore criminals. You know, we took many people off the streets of Washington, D.C. They're hardcore. They're not going to be good. In 10 years, in 20 years, in 2 years, they're going to be criminals. They were born to be criminals, frankly. They were born to be criminals, and they're tough and mean, and they'll cut your throat, and they won't even think about it the next day. They won't even remember that they did it. And we're not going to have those people. Washington, D.C. is now a safe zone. It's a safe place. And you can walk, Katie, you can walk right down the street with, by the way, one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen, which is her husband. He was a football player for like 11 years in the NFL. He's a big person. But big doesn't mean anything when they have guns and when they have knives and everything else that they have, right? But you can...
They were born to be criminals. What did he mean by this? I really love the part where he talks about, how he was celebrating 7 days without a murder in Washington, D.C. in front of that other world leader. And this guy's like, why is that something to celebrate? It's like, yeah, we've got a crime problem. Yeah, why is that something to celebrate? It's only something to celebrate 7 days without a murder if you are ruled over by tyrannical Democrats who let crime run rampant, let murderers back out on the street. In any sane, normal, rational, safe society, that would just be the standard. But when you're living under a Democrat, 7 days without a murder is a jubilee. I mean, it's the biggest thing you could possibly celebrate. But anyways, yes, he is intentional, or he is intending to go into Chicago, finally cleaning up that city. No matter how much they protest, as President Trump says, he has the right to do it. And he has a mandate, all right? He was elected by a massive mandate to clean up this country, and that includes our big cities. We really need to stop letting the radical left have control over our cities. They are the most influential parts of the country, and they are truly like spectacles of American ingenuity. These massive buildings and places, they're gorgeous, and we should not let them be run by Democrats any longer. And ideally, with Trump proving that crime is a choice that's inflicted upon you by your leaders, maybe, just maybe, I don't know if you could put this much faith in Democrat voters based on their history, but maybe Democrat voters will start looking around and saying, hey, we don't have to live like this. Maybe we shouldn't vote for Democrats anymore. It's a long shot. We know how these people are, but, regardless. Anyways, Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, had a little bit to say about the possibility of President Trump extending the time period for these federal officers to be in D.C. and making sure that the streets are safe. So we'll check that out now.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. You said that you would be opposed to having an extension of the National Guard's presence here. Since the crackdown began, carjackings have dropped 66%, and robberies have dropped 28%, and violent crime 15%. And you've been opposed to this since their presence here began, but are Democrats finding themselves on the wrong side of this issue at all with such reports? They're a bit beneficial.
I had a very good conversation with the mayor of the District of Columbia. I'm going to continue to support her position. Every single area of criminal activity that you mentioned was on the way down prior to the arrival of the National Guard. I'm going to continue to personally support the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia. I'm going to support the Chicago Police Department, the New York Police Department, and police officers who protect and serve all across the country. And if those local police departments conclude that they want some support from the federal government, then I support that effort by those local police departments to partner with the federal government. It's as simple as that. Donald Trump is not going to get away with lecturing anybody about issues of law and order. His administration is the very definition of lawlessness and disorder. He promised to lower costs on day one. You know what he did on day one? He pardoned hundreds of violent felons who brutally beat police officers when attacking the Capitol on January 6th. That's the Donald Trump record. And no matter how much he wants to distract the American people away from what he himself has done, the reality is his administration is the definition of lawlessness and disorder in every possible way. Those are the facts.
You know what the record of Hakeem Jeffries is? It's defund the police. It's standing in line with the BLM movement, as they call for literally disintegrating police forces across the country. So it's really ironic to see him spouting all this faux, oh, I support the police, I support, the city police in all these places. It's just ridiculous. These people are such hypocrites and such liars. It's so disgraceful the way they just flip up on a dime. And then, of course, going to bring up January 6th, which not even going to get into. But anyways, we're going to move on to Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago and sort of his response to President Trump's calls to go in and federalize and clean up the streets of Chicago. So let's see what the single-digit approval rating mayor has to say.
Any attempts to reach out to the White House?
There is no secret of what I want from the federal government. There's no secret. In fact, he ignores it. $800 million that he took from cities like Chicago for violence prevention. What a slap in the face to the people who serve this city to try to override local authority. We've said fund our education system, invest in affordable housing, ensure that we are collaborating to get guns off the streets of Chicago. We're stopping guns being trafficked in from states that voted for him. And so now we do all of this hard work, this group assignment in the city of Chicago, and he wants to come at the end of the year before the assignment is due to try to put his name on the paper. He is reckless and out of control. He is the biggest threat to our democracy than we've experienced in the history of our country.
Fund our schools, build more subsidized housing, throw more money at us, That'll bring the crime rates down. Yeah, we've been trying that for, I don't know, probably since the Civil Rights Act, and it hasn't been working, obviously. If anything, things have only gotten worse because of people like Brandon Johnson who allow crime to run rampant, that don't do anything about it. They just say, oh, the socioeconomic factors. If you would just fund our education system, we wouldn't have all these criminals. Now, as President Trump says, these people were born to be criminals, and they just need to be taken care of. As said many times, President Trump has proven authority works. Just law enforcement works. Just get him on the street. Anyways, we've got one more clip here. I'm going to check out what he's talking about here.
Do you think it is to be ahead?
First off, I apologize for the fact that we can't really hear these questions, but hopefully through context clues with his responses, we can understand what's going on.
Do you think it is to be ahead of this before any federal agents are in Chicago to make sure that CBD and federal law enforcement know how to work together? And there's a lot of coordination that happens between those two, and I think this is a step forward, correct, to make sure that you're taking out federal agents from the shadows and defining what we expect.
Well, look, you framed it quite well. And quite frankly, the reason why this executive order is so paramount is because even though we know that this president is behaving outside of the bounds of the Constitution, it hasn't stopped him, but it stops in Chicago. And so this is about making a very clear distinction between what our law enforcement engages in versus what federal agents engage in. Because look, we have collaborated before, particularly getting guns off the streets of Chicago, the trafficking of drugs, the trafficking of human beings across this country. We have just had a major breakthrough where guns that were trafficked in from Indiana and Mississippi, we were able to interrupt that and get over 150 guns off the streets of Chicago. That's not what's happening right now. And so this executive order makes it emphatically clear that this president is not going to come in and deputize our police department.
Constitutional expert Brandon Johnson concludes that enforcing the law and stopping crime is actually unconstitutional. Yeah, okay, big guy. Anyways, with that, he's an idiot. What more is there to say? President Trump's going in. He's going to take it over. Crime is going to be put down. We're going to end it. We're going to make America great again. But with that, my name is Blake Cresses, and this has been Trending Politics. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell. Stay up to date with all political news. You can follow me on Instagram or X at Blake Cresses. My name's right there at the bottom left of your screen if you need help with spelling. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.